and welcome back to the channel. Happy that you're here. I'm very excited to be recording this video, and also randomly because I finally get to wear this shirt I thrifted last month. Today I really want to talk about beauty politics. And the glasses have no purpose, I just think they are very cute. What is beauty politics, and what is it specifically within Black communities, and how does it affect us as people who consume content and people who just happen to create content every now and then? If you are interested in this topic, please stick around for a very fun brain dump. So I watched the Black Beauty Effect documentary that is on Netflix right now, I believe. And I was also thinking about a video that I saw from Jordan Teresa about how beauty is really a commodity nowadays, very specific to beauty standards and trends that are popular right now. And so it got me kind of thinking, what do I want to talk about and how do I actually feel about it? And this is a topic that's kind of been long overdue for me. I know that I have my on and off periods of recording videos and being on YouTube and being active, but it's not a new topic. But I think what interested me specifically is kind of my thoughts around Black beauty and Black beauty politics. I think we all have our ideas about what beauty is, but I think beauty is very important to discuss and kind of dissect, because it affects so much of what we do, how we dress, how we present ourselves, and even how we present ourselves on social media. So if you're also someone who is recording videos, making content, you might necessarily feel that, you're not up to par because maybe you're not dressed up and put together, have your face on, or maybe you don't feel the need to present yourself in a specific way. For me, I know that if I'm recording a YouTube video like this one, that my preference is to maybe put on a little bit of powder, put on a little bit of makeup, because that's what makes me feel comfortable. But there's also an aspect of that where I do recognize that there's self-consciousness that's there. But if I'm making a video on TikTok, it's pretty easy for me to just record on my phone and say whatever it is I need to say, but I'm not really thinking about my own presentation. In Jordan Teresa's video, one of the trends or the aesthetic she talks about is more of that like clean girl aesthetic. So essentially, if you think about it, it's no makeup, it's your skin but better. It's basically looking the most natural you can be without going about it in natural ways, if that makes sense. It is necessary nowadays to make beauty look effortless. So with more people being interested in skincare and more people being interested in looking naturally beautiful, there's a lot of investment that has to go into that. There's a lot of money that gets put not only into skincare, but into different treatments, different procedures to make you look the most naturally beautiful that you can. Coincidentally, a lot of the people who are kind of the faces of this clean girl aesthetic are typically not people of color. You think about it, you think of maybe Kylie Jenner, Kendall Jenner, maybe think about Bella Hadid, Justin Bieber's wife. I don't know why her name, Hailey Baldwin. Yeah, if you think about those individuals, you think about like a clean girl aesthetic. They're kind of the face of it. But there's not a lot of emphasis on natural beauty as far as embracing your flaws, embracing blemishes, things like that. So you're being pushed to accept yourself naturally and to go more towards a natural beauty aesthetic, even though, in practice, it's not very natural. With Black beauty and Black beauty politics, I think so much of what's expected of Black women specifically, it's kind of like a catch-22. It's like you don't really win and you don't really lose. And Black beauty is sometimes kind of difficult. Black women have always had to overcome and find their own stride and make successes for themselves in really a society that doesn't value Black people. You could argue yes or no, but in a more extreme sense, there are a lot of instances where Black people obviously have been treated as less than human. There are moments in history when you can think of it, slavery, Jim Crow laws. You can think about all these moments in history where Black people have had to overcome prejudices and have had to overcome these thoughts and things that just weren't true true about them. Even for Black women, so our hair isn't naturally straight. You know, some people do have looser hair textures, but overall our hair texture is naturally straight. So think about maybe the 50s or the 60s, really, where women had to press their hair. So maybe they had a press and curl. Maybe they were wearing more updo types of styles, really to just fit in and assimilate. And the common theme, I think, back then and even until now is that some people can make the argument that Black women can't really be accepted in their fully natural state for reasons that are really out of their control. So if you think about it, you know, as a Black woman, that puts extra pressure if you ascribe to that, right? There are people who don't feel the need to present themselves in a certain way. There are people who maybe don't view themselves in that way or identify in that way. But for those who do, there is sometimes that pressure to feel like you need to be put together all of the time and feeling like you need to make your best effort to not basically look like a hot mess. The reason that I was thinking about that and connecting it to the Black Beauty Effect documentary is that Black beauty is not necessarily something that can be easily attained. And when I think about that, one thing that I think about specifically is hair. I saw a TikTok and she wasn't speaking in the video, but what she was really saying is that specifically in Black circles, but in her case, Black circles within HBCUs, there's a certain beauty aesthetic that's almost required of you to be accepted, maybe to get more social capital, to find your way around campus, make certain connections. I can understand that. I know from my experience, I didn't go to an HBCU, and really when I was thinking about going to college, the thought of an HBCU came up in my mind, but mostly because I wanted to be able to dance on a majorette team. I was really into Southern University and the Dancing Dolls, and I was like, oh, I would love to be that one day. That obviously didn't happen and I didn't need to. I went to school for engineering and I wouldn't have time for that anyway. But long story short, on HBCU campuses, there are a lot of beauty standards and trends that I think are emulated wider. And I say that because a lot of HBCU campuses have had their homecomings recently. I love watching homecoming videos. I love watching the culture come together. I just love seeing Black people have a good time. But something that did stand out to me is that within different sororities, so the Divine Nines, there are sororities, you know, like AKAs, for example, where there is a certain beauty aesthetic that is expected. Alpha Kappa Alpha is just one of many Black sororities that was founded in 1908 at Howard University in Washington, D.C., and it is the oldest Greek letter organization for African American women. Like many organizations, this organization stands for community service, but also uplifting the communities of Black women to empower them to pursue different careers. A lot of people who become AKAs move on to become successful in very different fields. Some of the controversies surrounding this organization, specifically within the past, is only selecting members who are of a certain skin tone, so lighter skin members, or preferring different hairstyles or hair textures. This has changed in recent years as more people have joined different sorority organizations, and it's not to say that this is still an issue or that it isn't an issue per se, but it is to say that there has been some instances where Black beauty politics has become an issue. Really, if you think about it, it kind of encapsulates everything this video is discussing, wherein Black women, even in their own communities and their own spaces, still may feel some pressure to assimilate or to take on certain aspects of features, hair textures, hairstyles, styles of dress in order to fit in and to find success. And it's not to say that, oh, you always have to have your hair straightened, you always have to have your hair in a certain way. And the expectation is maybe that, you know, you get an installation, you get a weave, maybe you wear wigs. But I say that Black beauty isn't easily attained because For me, I know when I have to do my hair and I have to go through a wash day that can take, literally the entire day. If somebody wants to get a wig, unless they know how to do it themselves, they have to prep their hair first. That takes some time. You have to install it. You have to make sure it's well maintained. Going to the salon isn't as easy as, hey, let me just get a quick trim. There's usually hours and hours and hours that goes into maintaining your beauty, maintaining your aesthetic, whatever that is to you. Something that I was noticing in the Black Beauty Effect is that a lot of people who maybe come up in the ranks and become beauty editors, they become powerhouses in the beauty industry. Not for everyone, but a lot of the times from what I've noticed that people do come from HBCUs, or they're also a part of sororities where they can make these connections and where they can make these things happen for themselves. And it's not really a coincidence, and I think it's a lot more connected than maybe we all realize. Not to say it's a negative thing, because I think it's great that Black women can find space and come together and uplift themselves. But when a lot of the people you see on the forefront who are maybe the change makers in these more beauty or fashion industries come from the same backgrounds, it makes you think, what did they have to do to be accepted in these circles, number one, whether it was on college campuses or other places, but what did they have to do to also maintain that? And Black women can get criticized pretty easily for, not having their hair done, not having their makeup on point, just not looking perfect. And it's not any fault of our own, really.
Black Beauty Effect is this intangible thing that Black women have.
We truly are the tastemakers.
Shaping beauty standards, changing the culture of what beauty looks like.
Everybody wants to be just like us, but nobody can duplicate us.
Black women have always had to overcome and find their own stride and make successes for themselves in really a society that doesn't value Black people. You could argue yes or no, but in a more extreme sense, there are a lot of instances where Black people obviously have been treated as less than human. There are moments in history when you can think of it, slavery, Jim Crow laws. You can think about all these moments in history where Black people have had to overcome prejudices and have had to overcome these thoughts and things that just weren't true about them. In the Black Beauty Effect, there is a section in the documentary that discusses Black women and social media, and what I think does a really great job of showing how Black women have had to make their own spaces, and not just make their own spaces, but learn how to thrive in those spaces. One of the creators who I think a lot of us are familiar with, but maybe not, is Jackie Aina. She is featured in the documentary. I think she was also one of the producers, if I'm not mistaken, on the documentary as well. But she is featured, and other creators are featured who are able to share their stories. So all of the creators that are mentioned and featured in the documentary are beauty influencers and beauty creators. So if you think back in the day when YouTube was kind of first popping off, you could say. So for me, I would say around 2010, 2014, that was basically when I was in high school. I know that I was trying to learn how to do my own makeup and trying to learn how to do my hair. And what I really appreciated at that time was that I actually could find Black beauty creators, Black makeup artists, Black hairstylists, or even people who maybe didn't have a career in beauty, who were just regular people who knew how to do their hair. And obviously I needed those tips because I needed to know what I was doing. It was really groundbreaking for these creators to not only start making their own videos and make their own space, but for them to grow at the level that they did. And specifically with Jackie Aina now, she has grown so much. She has her own candle business. She is more, I think, now into home and decor. So she's really been able to kind of make her own lane for herself and find a lot of success from it. But something that I was thinking about as I was watching the documentary is that a lot of people in the beauty industries, they do have, I want to say, like a certain look. if that makes sense. And it's kind of broad because there's different people of different shapes, sizes, shades who have been able to make their own space for themselves in the industry. But it kind of makes you think, even for those individuals who started in YouTube very early on, they did have to in some ways change their look or maybe change the way that they presented themselves. And a part of that, I think, comes when you have more access. So going back to the clean girl aesthetic and thinking about having access to these skincare products, to these procedures, having not just access to it, but the time to use services like going to a salon or being able to just go get your nails done whenever you need to. Those are things that not everybody is able to do. And it's not to take away from their success because they deserved it and they worked hard for it. But I think we compare ourselves to these individuals not fully realizing how much capital they have, not just capital as far as money, but social capital to be able to make these things work for them. When it comes to Black beauty and Black beauty politics, I think that things that are very important to highlight and that should not be left out of this conversation are texturism, featurism, and colorism. And those are things that they can affect different groups of people, but as a Black woman, I can only speak on my experience and the experiences of other Black women who fall in this category. So texturism, number one, is any type of prejudice or mistreatment that someone can face because of the texture of their hair. So when you think about, for me, early YouTube creators, Black creators, when I was watching hair tutorials, I was trying to find people who had similar hair textures to me and people who had, different products that I could use or recommendations that I could try since I didn't know as much back then. During those times of the 2010s, 2014, there was the natural hair movement that was happening, and so that was why I had so much access to different YouTubers who could educate me on how to take care of my hair. But within that, there was also a hierarchy that started as far as the hair typing chart, and really what was meant to be a way of, I guess, labeling your hair, trying to understand like what type of texture do you have, what type of curls do you have, kind of became like a hierarchy of its own, where looser hair textures were more favored over more tight or coily hair textures. And that affects not only the way that Black women choose to wear their hair, but the way that Black women choose to present themselves. And it can be hard if you don't have a hair texture that falls in that higher end of the hierarchy, because you have to find different ways to manipulate your hair to fit this beauty standard or to fit this idea of what Black beauty is that maybe doesn't work for you. With colorism, it is very similar to where you face more prejudice if you are a darker skin complexion versus someone who is a lighter skin complexion. And that, there's tons of videos on colorism. I'll link some below. Chrissy on YouTube, I think she still does, but she talked a lot about colorism and how it affected dating, how it affected Black women in work, just Black women in life. And I think she is a great resource if you want to know more about that. And with featurism, that is specific to, having more keen features. So as, Black people, and not to generalize or anything like that, but some of the things that are typically pointed out is maybe having like thicker lips, having a bigger nose, things like that specifically. But the more your features kind of align with more European features or just more keen features, the more that you're easily accepted, which all of those things in practice, texturism, features, and colorism, they are not right, and people should not be judged for the things that they literally can't control about, their face or their body, but talking about access to capital. So think about early YouTubers that you saw, maybe when they first started, think about what they looked like then and think about what they look like now. And obviously, we're not going to speculate and say that, people got procedures, people didn't. If people disclose that is up to them. And if they don't, then they don't. But I think that for Black women and a lot of stars that you see. So I think Summer Walker is a good example to where she has, you know, visibly had different procedures, but something that is pretty common for artists like her is to get something done to their noses. So more of like a rhinoplasty that is going to make their nose like visibly slimmer. And that's something that's pretty common, and I think it's being more accepted. I think it's kind of unfortunate because it's almost this expectation that once you reach a certain level or once you get to a certain level of success that you are going to have some type of operation or that you are going to have a procedure done to make yourself look more appealing, even if it's not necessary to begin with. And you know, all of that boils down to trying to fit different aesthetics. So something that was mentioned a lot in the Black Beauty Effect, which I agree with, you know, is that Black women do set a lot of trends, just a lot of different fashions, a lot of different makeup applications, even like nails, hairstyles, jewelry. You think about it, Black women have paved the way in a lot of sense and then have been popular for those things. And when you think about cultural appropriation, for example, there are things taken from Black culture, from things that Black women have pioneered, and they are popularized by other people who are not in that group. So we're not always the forefront of beauty standards in the sense that even if we do set trends and we do set standards and we have our own unique ways of presenting ourselves, that there's still some expectation of trying to fit into something that isn't really you. It's almost like you're fighting the two different battles. On the one hand, you're trying to, you know, look as acceptable and maybe palatable as you can within your own community, and even within communities that face oppression, communities that face prejudice, you can still kind of practice different types of prejudices against, you know, people in your own group. So not only am I, you know, working to see how do I fit within this sector, this sphere, but through, you know, the greater community, the other cultures that like I don't fit in, is trying to still feel beautiful and feel acceptable, even if I very visibly am not, you know, a European white woman. Beauty in itself is such a loaded topic because it's subjective, right? There's different standards of beauty throughout the years that they change pretty frequently, but either way, there's still some type of battle or some type of fight to try to fit in or to try to be as close to a standard. So personally, I think the best thing that anyone can do is, you know, try to make sure that when you're presenting yourself, whatever that means, whatever that looks like to you, that you're true to who you are as a person. There's a lot of moving parts and arguments and opinions about, you know, what is beauty, what does it mean to be beautiful, but that's something that we should be able to define for ourselves. And it's not easy, but I think resisting the pressure to try to fit into a certain aesthetic or into a certain look, easier said than done, but that's what's going to help a lot, especially with, you know, just trying to maintain your sanity and trying to make sure that, you know, you can be sane. This really was kind of like a brain dump on things that I was thinking of, and who knows, I may end up doing like a part 2 or something to kind of expand on this that's a little more organized. But let me know what you think when you think about beauty. What does it mean to you, and what is your opinion on beauty politics? What do you think beauty politics is, and how does it affect you if you're a content creator, and how does it affect you if you are somebody who enjoys watching content like this? If you enjoyed that, feel free to subscribe to the channel. At this moment, I have 2 other videos up right now. One is on my experiences being multifaceted as an engineer, and another is a chaotic work trip vlog if you enjoyed those. But thank you for watching this video if you stuck around to the end, and leave a comment or like the video, share with a friend if you enjoyed it, and hopefully I see you in the next one. Okay, thanks, bye.